What's going on, guys? Welcome back to NolanTCG, and we are back here today for another deck profile, and it is Madolche. So a lot of Madolche reprints are out now. I think the entire deck's been reprinted this year, so it's a perfect time to pick it up if you want to look at picking up Madolche. Granted, this build is not going to be a cheap build. If you are looking for like a more budget approach to Madolche, yeah, this style probably isn't for you. I do apologize if I just like popped the microphone as well, because it just got very loud. But yeah, so if you're looking for more of a budget build, I'll give some budget alternatives as we're going through the list, but overall, this isn't a budget Madolche list. But as always, before we do get started, please remember to drop down below and hit that subscribe button if you are new here, because we are always happy to have new people to the channel. And let's get on into the deck profile for this one. Okay, so starting us off, we have 3 copies of Madolche Angeli. Let's slide those across a little bit. Yeah, we've got 3 copies of Madolche Angeli. Tribute, summon from deck, can just kind of like turn itself into anything. Then, of course, we've got 3 copies of Madolche, your primary normal summon for the deck. So, normal summon, search anything in the deck, keep playing. 3 copies of Pettingcessor. This is the free special summon that should have been a super in the Mega Tins, but was a common for some strange reason. Free special summon if you have nothing in graveyard. The reason, like, this deck kind of works and this build works is because you're playing, like, this is like your primary card you want to see. You summon it with the no monsters in grave, then special summoning from deck. Does lock you into Madolches though, so keep that in mind. If you are playing more of a budget build, this doesn't have to be the focal point, because you would switch to more like budget hand traps. This deck plays like no hand traps that end in grave in your end phase, so that this can trigger on your turn. If you're playing stuff like Ash, this card like becomes dead, so you like don't want to do that at all. Then we've got 2 copies of Hootcake. If you are playing the budget build to this with like more hand traps and stuff that are in grave at the end of your turn, play Hootcake at 3, because then it becomes good because you have a monster to banish from grave to like activate his effect. But in this build, you just play 2 of it because he's not the best normal summon that you have. Then next off, we've got 2 copies of the Messengerlado. Card will trigger when you've got the Hootcake, so it is like the primary card you want to summon off your Hootcake. Yeah, when he hits field, you trigger, you search, good card. Then the card that you need in deck, the Garnet, it is 1 copy of Madolche Puddingcess. You want to like special this off the Pettingcessor, because it reduces the level by 1. So off the Pettingcessor, you want to summon the Puddingcess, it becomes a 4, opens up all of your Xyz plays. That finishes off for the Madolche normal monsters, or just monsters in general. And then we get into the hand traps. It is 3 copies of Nibiru. If your locals like doesn't really play cards that would die to Nibiru, you can cut this. If you're playing against like heavy Dogmatica Invoked or like Eldritch, this card's like not super necessary. I would definitely cut it in that case. This is a 45 card list, so you can like trim this if you do not need it. Then we've got 3 copies of Gamma, and of course the 1 Driver. These are the last of the monster-based hand traps. These cards are like don't end up in grave, like always. It is also good to have like just removal of the card. But yeah, the main reason why you're playing this package is because A, it's a hand trap, and B, it's not in grave in your end phase. That finishes up for the monsters. Now we get into our spells, and we have 3 copies of the double summon, Madolche Salon. If you open this is how you like play through multiple disruptions on your turn, because you can like go into 1 set of disruptions with the Salon, activate the Salon, summon again, keep playing. Then we play 2 copies of Ticket. I really need to get like the reprint of this, because like the corners on it are a bit scuffed up. But yeah, 2 copies of Ticket just helps you like have free extenders. Then we've got 2 copies of Chateau. Shuffles everything back and then allows you that like free kind of bit of recursion, and the plus 500 buff becomes huge. That's it for the Madolche spells, and now we've got 3 copies of Extrav, because this is an Extrav build, of course. I'm just playing like 3 of each of the Madolche monsters in the extra deck, which makes Extrav good. The reason why I'm doing that is because you do get locked into Madolches anyway, so you may as well like max out on those numbers and just play Extrav. There are like Link builds out there, but I find that this version is just so much more consistent. Then next off, 3 copies of Lightning Storm. You can switch these for like Harpies and Cosmics if you're going more budget. I just find that because this threatens like the monsters as well, it's just a great card to have to bait and negate on the opponent's turn. Then we've got 3 copies of Talents. This is your replacement for the Cold Buyers. If you do not have access to this card, I would just trim all 3 and replace it with 1 copy of Called By instead. It's just essentially like the card you're using to get around that. Then the last of the spells, we've got 3 copies of Forbidden Droplets. The only instance I find I don't like this card is if you have to send a monster and you haven't started playing yet. Typically, I would summon the Petting Cessor. Petting Cessor's effect will trigger, your opponent negates it, you droplet to send the Petting Cessor. That finishes off the spells. Now we've got 2 copies of Promenade, the card that lets you go first. If you know you're going second, you can like side 1 copy of this out. It's always good to have 1 though, just in case like you get into a bit of a grind game. And then rounding out the main deck, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. This card is pretty much budget now, so if you're playing a budget build, I would still definitely play Impermanence, simply because it's not a monster. It's just a disruption that's not a monster. Okay, so next off now we have the extra deck, and it is pretty straightforward. It is 3 copies of Shock a la Mode, simply because you like need to play 3 of all of them in the extra build. So 3 Shock a la Mode, 3 copies of the Dragoon out in Queen Tiramisu, non-target shuffle back into the deck. Great way to out that. Then we've got 3 copies, I don't know why I said 2, of Glace Soufflé. This is the card you would typically go into on your turn if you're going first. This is like the best option. Then we've got 3 copies of Madolche Fresh Sistart. I don't really like using it. I find like when I'm using it, I'm a bit behind in the game state, but sometimes it comes up. Then for the rest of it, these are the cards you make in like certain situations where you've either been disrupted or something's gone wrong. But we've got 1 copy of Dweller, 1 copy of Phoenix, and the Game Ender in 1 copy of Borrelsword Dragon. Okay, so for this one as well, I'm going to take you through my side deck. So this is like pretty much filled with like budget alternatives that you could use, but these cards I find in different matchups are just like a lot better. But we've got 3 copies of Phantasme start us off in the side deck, another monster that doesn't touch Grave, which is good. Lets you dig through. Yes, it does block off like your Imperm and your Gamma, but you can use it to like dig for like Nibiru or like a follow-up card for the next turn. Then we've got 3 copies of Token Collector. It's good against Dragon Link, and it's good against Infernoble, which is like a big thing at my locals. When that matchup, like this just hits board and then doesn't go to grave, so solid card, floodgates them out as well. Then we've got 2 copies of Cosmic and the 1 Feather Duster. These can be your replacements to the in the main deck, the Lightning Storms, if you want to do that. I'm just citing these because like in more back row heavy matchups, there are also some like Mystic Mind players that float around my locals, so these are like the options that I cited in that case. Also a part of that, 3 copies of Evenly Matched, just for those floodgatey decks. Yes, you do like lose your battle phase when you use it, but like you can just set up like the typical Madolche going first board after doing that. And then for when you're made to go first, as always, this is like probably my favorite card in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. It's 3 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison. But that will wrap us up here for the deck profile for this one. So if you do have any budget alternatives that you play in your Madolche list, as always, comment those guys down below. I do apologize that this is so expensive, but yeah, it's just kind of like the best way to play Madolche at the moment. Yes, the reprints have made it cheaper, but the stuff you need to play makes it more expensive. But as always, I've been Ben from NolanTCG, and have a good afternoon, everybody.